Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take a monumental subject,
Yeah.
throw all the available source material at the wall, and help you, the listener, walk away feeling truly informed, armed with the essential narrative and the surprising context.
And today the subject is, well, it's about as monumental as it gets.
It really is.
Yeah.
We are not just discussing a great sportsman today. We are stepping into the rarefied air of a global economic, cultural, and competitive phenomenon. We're dedicating this entire deep dive to Michael Jordan.
It's a fascinating challenge today because our source material, primarily the highly detailed career overview found in biographical sources like Wikipedia,
Yeah.
it forces us to treat his life not just as a timeline of athletic feats.
Right.
It's more like a carefully constructed blueprint for modern sports marketing, competitive psychology, and just, unprecedented wealth generation.
And that's our mission. We need to unpack that essential narrative, the milestones, the competitive edges, and maybe even the strategic missteps that took him from a kid who was initially cut from his varsity team to a man whose net worth, as of 2025, is estimated at an astronomical $3.8 billion.
That number 3.8 billion, it just hangs over everything, doesn't it?
It's the headline that frames this entire discussion. The fact that an athlete can amass that kind of wealth outside of, direct contract salaries speaks volumes about his cultural gravity.
Absolutely.
So before we dive into the foundational years, let's just quickly lay out the pillars of the legend for context, because even the broad strokes are overwhelming. Jordan played 15 total seasons in the NBA, stretching from 1984 all the way to 2003.
Mostly defining the Chicago Bulls dynasty.
Exactly. With a final, pretty surprising stop with the Washington Wizards.
And those 15 seasons are, they're probably the most decorated 15-year stretch in basketball history. We're talking about 6 NBA championships, all of them secured in the 1990s.
And he wasn't just along for the ride.
No, not at all. He earned 6 NBA Finals MVPs, which is still an all-time record. It just shows that he was always the defining force in every single championship series he won. And on top of that, 5 regular season NBA MVP awards.
He was just integral in turning professional basketball and the NBA brand into the global powerhouse that we recognize today, especially in the 80s and 90s, expanding the league's footprint way beyond North America.
And that success, it wasn't just limited to the NBA court.
No. His time representing the U.S. national team was defined by absolute, unblemished dominance. He competed in 4 major international tournaments and won gold medals in every single one.
Everyone. The 83 Pan American Games, the 84 Olympics.
The 92 Tournament of the Americas, and that, of course, the 92 Barcelona Olympics, the Dream Team.
Right. So that means across his amateur and professional national team career, he played 30 games and walked away with 30 wins. That level of international perfection is just almost unheard of.
It's insane.
And here's where the numbers really establish the sheer dominance that defined his career. When you look at the greatest scorers in NBA history, you have to adjust for pace and era and all that, but Jordan holds 2 NBA scoring records that they truly stand apart.
Okay, what are they?
He has the NBA record for the career regular season scoring average, clocking in at 30.1 points per game. But here is the critical insight, the part that really tells the story. His career playoff scoring average jumps up to 33.4 points per game. Most players, even the great ones, see their efficiency drop in the pressure cooker of the playoffs.
Sure, the defense gets tougher.
Exactly. But Jordan saw his intensity and his output actually increase. That massive jump is the metric of a competitor who thrives when the stakes are at their absolute highest.
That distinction, the fact that he got statistically better when the season was on the line, is such a powerful piece of evidence for his psychological profile.
It's everything.
And as a final, current testament to his magnitude, in December 2022, the NBA actually unveiled a new MVP trophy, replacing the old one, and it is officially named in his honor, the Michael Jordan Trophy.
It's the ultimate recognition of his historical importance. But to understand the icon and to understand that $3.8 billion mogul, we have to start at the beginning. At the intense drive and motivation that was forged long, long before he ever wore a Bulls jersey.
Okay, let's unpack this and move into his ascent, starting with those foundational years. Michael Jeffrey Jordan was born in Brooklyn, New York City in February 1963.
Right, but his family, including his 2 older brothers and 2 sisters, they made a pretty significant geographical shift moving to Wilmington, North Carolina in 1968. That's where he grew up.
And what's often overlooked is that he was a genuine multi-sport athlete at Emsley A. Laney High School. He played basketball, sure, but also baseball and football.
But the most important story from this period, the one that knows as the ultimate origin story for his competitive spirit, is the fact that he was initially deemed too short for the varsity basketball team as a sophomore.
That's the seminal moment, isn't it? Being rejected. He stood 5 feet 11 inches at the time, and the source notes that his friend, Leroy Smith, made the team instead of him.
And this wasn't just a minor disappointment for him. This became the chip on his shoulder that fueled his entire career. He didn't quit. Instead, that slight just fueled this ferocious drive.
So he becomes the star of the junior varsity team, right?
The absolute star. He was logging 40-point games, just completely dominating his peers to prove a point to the coaching staff.
And then came the physical transformation coupled with that focused training. He grew 4 inches the following summer, which is a remarkable growth spurt.
And he dedicated himself to rigorous training, earning a spot on the varsity roster. By the time he was a senior, the story was completely different. He wasn't just on the team, he was a phenomenon.
He averaged more than 25 points per game over his final 2 seasons, and he adopted that signature No. 23 jersey.
And the reason for the number 23 is actually pretty cool. His older brother, Larry, who he looked up to, wore number 45. So Michael took half of 45, rounded up to 23, because he aspired to be at least half as good as him.
And that dominance peaked his senior year. The sources confirm he logged a full-fledged triple-double average, a feat just unheard of for a high school star back then.
Yeah, the numbers are wild. 26.8 points, 11.6 rebounds, and 10.1 assists per game. That led to his selection for the 1981 McDonald's All-American game. He wasn't just a scorer anymore, he was a comprehensive force.
That performance level meant he had his pick of schools, including elite programs like Duke, Syracuse, Clemson.
But he chose North Carolina, where he played under the legendary, very highly structured coach Dean Smith. And it's a fun little footnote that Jordan initially majored in cultural geography.
Right, because he was genuinely interested in a career as a meteorologist.
Yeah, it's an interesting reminder that even these icons have these mundane, alternative career paths before fate, intervenes.
He quickly adapted to the team-oriented system under Smith, which was really designed to spread the wealth, not highlight a single star.
And yet, Jordan still shone through. He earned ACC Freshman of the Year, averaging 13.4 points on a really impressive 53.4% shooting.
But the single crucial turning point in his young career, the moment the world truly saw his clutch potential, it wasn't a solo statistical output. It was a pressurized moment in the 1982 NCAA championship game.
Exactly. They were up against Patrick Ewing and the heavily favored Georgetown Hoyas. With just seconds left in a super tight game, Jordan, a freshman, mind you, he takes and makes the game-winning jump shot.
That is the moment he pointed to when he said that was the birth of Michael Jordan.
It wasn't about scoring 30 points. It was the first time he successfully shouldered the pressure of a whole nation watching in a decisive moment. And he delivered.
He left UNC early after his junior season, having swept the Major Player of the Year awards, the Naismith and the Wooden Awards in 1984, signaling he was definitely ready for the pros.
But he showed this admirable commitment to his education. He went back in 1986 to complete his Bachelor of Arts degree in geography, fulfilling that promise to his family.
And that takes us directly to one of the most consequential strategic failures in sports history, the 1984 NBA draft.
Oh, the draft anomaly. It's just a case study in misprioritization. The landscape was set, the talent was generational, but the choices made by two teams just fundamentally altered the course of the NBA for the next 2 decades.
Houston, picking first, they correctly took the consensus best player available, center Hakeem Olajuwon, who went on to be an all-time great. No mistake there.
Nope. But then Portland, picking second, famously selected center Sam Bowie. And because of that selection, the Chicago Bulls, picking third, secured Michael Jordan.
The critique in the sources regarding the Portland Trailblazers is just severe.
It is. Their general manager, Stu Inman, he defended the pick by arguing they already had a skilled, high-scoring guard in Clyde Drexler, who they drafted the year before, and therefore they needed a center.
This prioritization of need over superior talent just proved disastrous.
Completely. ESPN later named the Blazers' choice of Bowie, who struggled with injuries his whole career, the worst draft pick in North American professional sports history.
It's an incredible lesson for team builders, isn't it? When generational talent is staring you in the face, you take the talent. You figure out the roster later.
You take the talent. It wasn't just a failure of assessment, it was a failure of vision. This one decision allowed Chicago to reap the benefits immediately, and it ushered in the spectacular Bulls era.
Let's jump right into that rookie season, 1984-1985, because he didn't just meet expectations, he shattered them right away.
Jordan's official debut was October 26, 1984, where he scored 16 points. And the excitement was palpable from day one. I mean, to put it in monetary terms, a ticket stub from that single debut game sold for a record $264,000 at auction in 2021.
Wow.
He averaged 28.2 points per game, instantly becoming a top scorer, and he helped the Bulls jump from a dismal 27-55 record the year before to 38-44, making the playoffs for the first time since 1981.
He became a cultural sensation almost overnight. The New York Times called him the phenomenal rookie, and he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated in December with that prophetic headline, "A Star is Born."
But this immediate, overwhelming celebrity quickly led to his first professional controversy, the infamous freeze-out during the 1985 All-Star Game.
Right. This was a pivotal moment.
It was. Led by established veteran players like Isaiah Thomas, there were reports that the stars of the league were deeply upset by the amount of attention, media focus, corporate attention that the rookie was getting.
So what did they do?
The result was a concerted effort during the game to just refuse to pass him the ball. It was a clear attempt to humble the new kid on the block.
But the thing about Jordan is, he was not someone who forgot a slight.
Never. While it didn't derail his season, he still won the NBA Rookie of the Year award easily. That moment is often cited as the origin of his simmering rivalry and competitive spite toward players like Isaiah Thomas.
It was the veterans trying to impose the old guard hierarchy.
And Jordan just absorbed it, filed it away, only to return with even greater force.
And this is also the origin point of the nickname Air Jordan, thanks to his phenomenal leaping ability.
Yeah, the source material details an iconic moment on August 26, 1985, during a Nike exhibition game in Trieste, Italy. During a dunk, he drove through the lane with so much force that he shattered the glass of the backboard into pieces.
That wasn't just a dunk, it was a physical manifestation of his destructive gravitational force.
Exactly. And that incident is foundational to his branding. The Nike shoes he wore in that game, the ones with the piece of embedded glass still in the sole, they later sold for a record $615,000 at auction. The Air Jordan brand was born from explosive, backboard-shattering play.
Speaking of hard landings, the 1985-86 season was almost grounded early when he broke his foot, forcing him to miss 64 games.
Right, and the Bulls management reportedly wanted him to sit out the whole season, but Jordan defied them. He forced his way back onto the court. The team still made the playoffs despite a pretty dismal 30-52 record.
And his return was pure theater. In Game 2 of the first round against the eventual champion Boston Celtics, one of great teams in NBA history, Jordan delivered a performance for the ages.
He scored a playoff career-high 63 points in a double overtime loss.
And that performance prompted Celtics star Larry Bird's famous quote describing Jordan as God disguised as Michael Jordan.
It was the highest praise, coming from the league MVP. Bird essentially admitted that even though they won the game, they were dealing with a force of nature, a level of singular offensive genius they had just never seen before.
So even though the Bulls were swept, Jordan had permanently established himself as this undeniable, generationally dominant force in the playoffs.
He bounced back fully in 1986-87, delivering one of the most prolific scoring seasons in NBA history. He averaged a league-high 37.1 points per game and became only the second player other than Wilt Chamberlain to score 3,000 points in a single season.
And what's often forgotten about that scoring dominance is that he simultaneously showed remarkable defensive genius.
Absolutely. That year, he became the first player in NBA history to record 200 steals and 100 block shots in a season. That is the definition of a two-way player.
Yet, despite that dual dominance, Magic Johnson took home the MVP award that year.
Another slate that Jordan likely filed away for later competitive use. The Bulls improved to 40 wins, but were, once again, swept by the Celtics.
The Celtics were the dynasty of the moment, but the true, defining, brutal, physical, and psychological roadblock for Jordan was about to emerge: the Detroit Pistons.
Ah, the Pistons era. From 1987 to 1990, it was just pure battle. In '88, Jordan averaged 35 points per game and finally won his first league MVP award. And crucially, in that same season, he also won the NBA Defensive Player of the Year award.
A truly rare combination of offensive engine and defensive anchor. But this is where we need to apply a critical lens to the sources, because there's a fascinating analytical critique about that 1988 DPOI award that emerged much later.
Yes, a 2024 study questioned the statistical validity of that award. It pointed out a suspiciously large discrepancy between his steals numbers at home versus on the road.
So what was the claim?
The claim suggested that in some home games, Jordan was credited with a volume of steals that appeared inflated, specifically noting instances where he was credited with more steals than the opposing team had total live ball turnovers.
Wow. So if that's the case, what does that tell us about scorekeeping back then?
It tells us that statistical diligence was far less rigorous in the 1980s, and what we might call hometown scorekeeping was a recognized phenomenon, especially for star players.
So the study isn't saying he wasn't a great defender.
No, not at all. His overall metrics prove that he was. But it raises an important historical footnote that we have to report, suggesting the DPOY honor might have been aided by a little stat inflation. It asks us to look at his defensive performance over the long haul, not just that one season's numbers.
That attention to detail is exactly what makes the deep dive worthwhile. Regardless of that controversy, he led the Bulls past the first round for the first time in his career in 1988 before running directly into Detroit.
And the Pistons were unrelenting. They earned the nickname the Bad Boys for a reason. They eliminated the Bulls 3 consecutive times, 88, 89, and 90.
And their core strategy was the notorious Jordan rules.
Yes, a defensive method conceived by coach Chuck Daly. And this wasn't standard defense. It mandated double and triple teaming Jordan every time he touched the ball, using extreme physicality. It was designed specifically to beat him up and wear him down mentally.
It was essentially a legal form of mugging on the court. The sources detail how they would intentionally hit him hard to make him think twice before driving the lane.
It was the ultimate test of his will. But Jordan still had his shining moments, even in defeat. Think of the 1989 first-round series against the Cavaliers.
The shot.
The shot over Craig Alo at the buzzer. It won the decisive Game 5 and saved the series. It proved he couldn't be stopped in the biggest moments.
But the losses to Detroit proved the team could be. They tried to adjust. In the 88-89 season, Coach Doug Collins even experimented with Jordan playing point guard.
And he achieved an astonishing 10 triple-doubles in 11 games. It showed his adaptability, but it wasn't the systemic change they needed.
The real fundamental change came with the hiring of new head coach Phil Jackson and assistant Tex Winter.
And this marks the definitive transition to the first three-peat era, 1991-1993, and the implementation of the triangle offense.
This is the critical juncture. Jordan was a singular scoring talent, but the Pistons proved a singular scorer can be shut down. So how did the triangle offense counter that?
The triangle was implemented specifically to counteract the Jordan rules. The system is highly structured, creating options from all 5 positions, ensuring the ball never sticks in one player's hands. It demanded that Jordan change his style.
He had to reduce the number of individual shots he took and trust his teammates, Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, others, to be creators and finishers.
Which must have been a painful psychological shift for a player who lived for isolation plays and clutch shots.
I can't imagine.
He was initially reluctant, a fact he confirmed later in The Last Dance. He felt the system limited his personal genius. But his ultimate willingness to submit his ego to the system was the greatest act of maturity of his career. It was crucial to their championship success.
And the success was immediate. In the 1990-91 season, he won his second MVP, and the Bulls set a new franchise record of 61 wins.
More importantly, they finally, definitively swept the Detroit Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals. This wasn't just a series win, it was a psychological exorcism.
I remember the Pistons walking off the court before the final buzzer, refusing to shake hands.
That display of poor sportsmanship just cemented the bitterness of the rivalry and showed how much Jordan's victory had broken their will. And that win led to their first finals appearance against the Los Angeles Lakers, led by an aging Magic Johnson.
The Bulls won in 5 games, and the source details several career-defining moments from that series. The most iconic came in Game 2 when he famously switched the ball in midair from his right hand to his left to avoid a block.
The hand switch layup. It was the moment the athletic dominance of the 90s officially supplanted the Showtime era of the 80s.
And when they won the title, Jordan just emotionally cried while clutching the finals trophy.
Yeah.
A vivid display of years of frustration and effort finally being rewarded.
They continued their dominance the next year, 91-92, setting an even higher franchise record of 67-15. Jordan won his second consecutive MVP. The finals matched them against Clyde Drexler and the Portland Trail Blazers.
The man taken the year after Sam Bowie. The media showdown was Air Jordan versus the Glide.
And the series peaked right away. Game 1 was unforgettable. Jordan scored a finals record 35 points in the first half, including a record-setting 6 three-pointers.
And after the sixth one, he jogged down the court and gave the iconic shoulder shrug.
A move that just communicated utter bewilderment at his own brilliance. It was Marv Albert who famously said that Jordan looked like he was saying, "I can't believe I'm doing this."
The psychological warfare of that shrug moment, acting surprised by his own genius, was a classic Jordan move.
It was basically telling Drexler, "I didn't even try to do that and I still beat you."
And the culmination of the first run came in 1993. That year, he lost the regular season MVP to his friend Charles Barkley, a decision Jordan was fiercely upset about.
Which, of course, provided him with yet another competitive fire. They faced Barkley's Phoenix Suns in the finals.
And Jordan responded to the MVP slight with an unbelievable history-making performance. He averaged a finals record 41 points per game across the 6-game series.
40 or more points in 4 consecutive games. No one had ever dominated the finals offensively with that level of consistency. He became the first player in NBA history to win 3 consecutive finals MVP awards.
And with the completion of that third title, Jordan was just exhausted mentally and physically. The weight of being the world's biggest celebrity athlete had become overwhelming.
Which leads us directly to the shocking first retirement and the transition to a completely different sport, baseball.
It was seismic news that shook the entire global sporting landscape. On October 6, 1993, Jordan announced his retirement at the age of 30, seemingly at the absolute height of his powers.
He cited a loss of desire to play basketball and an extreme exhaustion from the intense media scrutiny and obligations of superstardom, which he and his teammates later affirmed in The Last Dance.
But the immediate, heartbreaking context was the tragedy involving his father. 3 months prior, on July 23, 1993, his father, James R. Jordan Sr., was murdered by carjackers. This created a profound crisis point for Jordan.
The loss was compounded by the fact that his retirement was also partly driven by the desire to pursue his late father's dream, seeing him play Major League Baseball.
That famous habit of sticking his tongue out while focused was actually an imitation of his father doing the same while absorbed in work.
Right. And his autobiography also admitted he was preparing for retirement as early as 1992, suggesting the Dream Team Olympic run had just exacerbated his exhaustion. The murder accelerated a decision that was already brewing due to mental fatigue.
So he shocked the world again by signing a minor league baseball contract with the Chicago White Sox organization on February 7, 1994.
The key detail there is that the White Sox were owned by Bulls owner Jerry Reinsdorf, who strategically continued to honor Jordan's lucrative NBA contract throughout his baseball stint.
He was assigned to the Birmingham Barons, the AA affiliate. Now, his stats were certainly not superstar level.
No. A .202 batting average, 3 home runs, 51 runs batted in, 30 stolen bases with a high 114 strikeouts. But you have to contextualize this.
He hadn't played competitive baseball since high school.
And he was competing against men who had played the sport professionally their whole lives. His willingness to submit to the grind of minor league baseball, the long bus rides, the unglamorous life, it showed his dedication to fulfilling his father's dream.
He also played in the Arizona Fall League that year, batting a slightly improved .252 against top prospects. Meanwhile, the Bulls organization did their best to keep the legend alive in Chicago.
They retired his number 23 jersey and unveiled the Spirit statue outside the United Center in November 1994, sealing his legacy even while he was away.
But the retirement was brief. Jordan ended his baseball career abruptly in March 1995, fearing he might become a replacement player during the ongoing bitter MLB strike.
He had no desire to undermine the players' union.
And then came the moment that shattered the sports world again. On March 18, 1995, he issued that legendary terse press release. 2 words.
I'm back.
The cultural impact was immediate and massive. His return game against the Pacers earned the highest Nielsen rating of any regular season NBA game since 1975. Initially, he wore number 45, his baseball number.
And the use of number 45 led directly to one of the most revealing moments of competitive fragility. In the 1995 Eastern Conference semifinals against the Orlando Magic, the Magic's Nick Anderson stripped the ball from Jordan late in Game 1.
And he later commented to the press that, no, 45 doesn't explode like no 23 used to.
That comment was all the fuel Jordan needed. It was a direct psychological attack that questioned his identity. He immediately resumed wearing Gnome 23 for Game 2.
which cost the Bulls a significant $25,000 fine from the NBA.
But for Jordan, the price was worth the competitive edge. The message was sent. The ultimate competitor was back. Consequences be damned.
Though Orlando won that series in 6 games, that playoff defeat motivated Jordan intensely. He spent the entire summer training aggressively, preparing for the 1995-96 season, leading into the second, even more dominant three-peat era.
This is truly the peak dominance era, starting with the 72-10 season, one of the most remarkable records ever in team sports.
The Bulls added defensive specialist and rebounder Dennis Rodman and trained with a ferocious intensity. They achieved a then unheard-of 72-10 regular season record.
A mark that stood for 2 decades until the Warriors surpassed it. That season, Jordan swept the major individual awards: regular season MVP, All-Star Game MVP, and Finals MVP.
They faced the Seattle Supersonics in the finals, winning 4-2. And emotionally, this title was perhaps the most crucial of his career, providing closure after his father's death.
Right. It was his first championship since 1993, and Jordan emotionally clutched the game ball and just cried alone on the locker room floor after the win. A deep, personal moment of validation.
Moving into 1996-97, the Bulls won 69 games. Jordan lost the regular season MVP race to Karl Malone in a tight vote,
which provided the necessary competitive fuel for another dramatic finals rematch with Malone and the Utah Jazz.
And this series gave us the legendary heroic performance known as the flu game.
Game 5, with the series tied 2-2. He was visibly feverish and dehydrated. He later claimed in The Last Dance that the source was actually food poisoning, likely from a tainted pizza rather than the flu.
Whatever it was, the performance was a testament to his sheer willpower. He scored 38 points while barely able to stand.
And he capped the performance with the game-winning three-pointer with 25 seconds remaining. The Bulls won, then closed out the series in Game 6, giving Jordan his 5th Finals MVP.
And that brings us to the famous Last Dance season, 1997-98. Jordan won his 5th regular season MVP and 3rd All-Star Game MVP, leading the league in scoring for the 10th time.
The atmosphere within the organization was tense. Coach Phil Jackson was expected to leave. Management was planning to break up the team. It was known internally as the Last Dance.
They once again met the Jazz in the finals, leading 3-2 in Game 6 in Utah. And this game featured arguably the greatest clutch sequence in finals history.
It was pure competitive theater. The Bulls were trailing 86-83 with 41.9 seconds left. Jordan gets the ball, drives hard, scores a tough layup. It's 86-85.
Then came the defensive sequence that many forget led to the final shot. Utah gets the ball to Karl Malone in the low post, the man who had taken the MVP from Jordan the year before.
And Jordan, positioned perfectly, waits for Malone to relax and then executes this clean, precise, opportunistic steal right out of his hands. A masterclass in recognition and execution under pressure.
Jordan then dribbles down the court, slows the pace, isolates his defender, Brian Russell. With 10 seconds remaining, he performs a quick, aggressive crossover.
Creating space and taking that critical top-key jumper over stumbling Russell. That jumper, made with 5.2 seconds left, gave Chicago the 87-86 lead and the championship. The second three-peat was complete.
That specific shot remains iconic, but we have to acknowledge the persistent debate surrounding it, the push-off.
Right. Whether Jordan slightly extended his off arm into Russell's hip to create separation, it endures. The officials didn't call a foul, but it just highlights how Jordan consistently pushed the boundaries of competition to gain the absolute winning edge.
Regardless of the debate, Jordan won a record 6th Finals MVP, having scored 45 points in that deciding game. And the cultural impact was profound. That 1998 Finals still holds the highest television rating of any final series in NBA history.
That sequence just encapsulates his entire player profile. He was the ultimate clutch performer. The sources calculate he decided 25 games with shots or free throws in the final 30 seconds for the Bulls. He didn't just want the ball at crunch time, he demanded it. And he delivered.
After the Last Dance, Jordan retired a second time in January 1999, amidst an NBA lockout and the looming dispersal of the Bulls dynasty. And this is where he transitioned for the first time to the executive suite.
A shift that provided, let's say, mixed results. He came back in January 2000 as part owner and president of basketball operations for the Washington Wizards.
And his executive tenure became a case study in how competitive genius on the court does not necessarily translate to front office success.
No, it does not. He did purge the team of some unpopular, highly paid players trying to instill his philosophy. But his most infamous move was using the 2001 #1 overall pick to select high school student Kwame Brown.
The Kwame Brown selection is often held up as the definitive example of his executive failure. Brown just did not live up to expectations.
No, and Jordan's coaching style, which often relied on verbally challenging and intimidating teammates, it just did not work on younger, less experienced players like Brown. It led to significant team dysfunction.
It sounds like his inability to relate to players who didn't possess his pathological competitiveness was his greatest weakness as an executive.
Precisely. And despite claiming in 1999 that he was 99.9% certain he would never play again, he felt the lure of the court. He returned to play for the Wizards on September 25, 2001.
And a fantastic detail here is that he donated his entire salary for his first season back to the relief efforts for the victims of the September 11th attacks.
In his final season, 2002-03, he showed that amazing durability again, playing all 82 games. He even became the first 40-year-old player to score 43 points in an NBA game.
His final game was April 16, 2003 in Philadelphia. He left the court to a spectacular 3-minute standing ovation from the entire arena, a fitting, emotional farewell to his playing career.
But the post-retirement drama continued. Jordan assumed he would return to his role as director of basketball operations with the Wizards. But in May 2003, owner Abe Pollin fired him.
Jordan later said he felt betrayed, arguing he never would have come back to play if he knew he would be fired. That executive tenure ended not with glory, but with acrimony.
Okay, so let's pivot now to the aspect of his career that defines his astronomical valuation: the business and cultural might of Michael Jordan. If the first two acts were about athletic conquest, the third is about financial architecture.
This is what explains that massive $3.8 billion figure.
The genius began early with his agent, David Falk, who coined the name Air Jordan and focused on building Jordan as a global icon. He became one of the most marketed sports figures in history.
Nike, Gatorade, McDonald's, Hanes.
But the real financial brilliance lies in the brand separation created by Nike. The original Air Jordan sneakers, introduced back in '84, were so successful that Nike made the highly unusual decision to spin the line off into its own separate entity called the Jordan brand.
And this is a critical distinction for you, the listener.
The Jordan brand operates almost independently, generating over $1 billion in sales for Nike annually. And Jordan receives a massive royalty cut from those sales. His yearly income from endorsements and licensing alone is estimated at over $40 million, long after his retirement. It's an annuity of excellence.
Beyond shoes, his cinematic footprint played a huge role. He starred in Space Jam in 1996, which, despite mixed reviews, was a box office success.
It made $230 million worldwide. But more significantly, the marketing engine behind the film generated over $1 billion through merchandise sales alone, extending the reach of the Jordan logo far beyond sports fans.
All of this residual income and brand capitalization led to his next biggest financial move:
ownership.
He became the first NBA player to become a billionaire in 2014, specifically after increasing his stake in the Charlotte Hornets.
Jordan bought a minority stake in the Charlotte Bobcats in 2006, and in 2010, he became the majority owner. But his tenure as owner was defined by struggle. A lot of struggle. During the lockout-shortened 2011-12 season, the Bobcats posted a .759 record, which was the worst winning percentage in NBA history at the time.
But regardless of the team's on-court performance, his ownership eventually resulted in a massive financial windfall.
Absolutely. He sold his majority stake in 2023 for approximately $3 billion. That is a staggering return on investment, considering the roughly $275 million he originally paid for the team. This transaction secured his status as one of the richest athletes of all time.
And his business interests continue to expand. Since 2021, he's been the co-owner of 23XI Racing in the NASCAR Cup Series.
We should also recognize the significant philanthropic endeavors that accompany this wealth. On his 60th birthday in 2023, he donated $10 million to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, the charity's largest single donation ever.
He's also focused heavily on North Carolina, his adopted home state, funding Novant Health Michael Jordan Family Clinics in Charlotte to provide care for uninsured and underinsured communities.
And in 2020, he pledged $100 million over 10 years through his brand for organizations dedicated to racial equality and social justice.
So let's bring this deep dive to a close with a final synthesis of his unique dominance.
Michael Jordan's legacy is defined by this comprehensive, almost contradictory dominance. A scoring leader with 10 scoring titles, and a defensive stalwart with 9 all-defensive first-team selections. He even achieved the basketball triple crown, NCAA title, NBA title, and Olympic gold twice.
And when you look at that record, it becomes clear why Magic Johnson once famously said, "There's Michael Jordan, and then there is the rest of us." that, quote, perfectly captures the competitive distance between him and everyone else in the 90s.
But the sources raise a fascinating critique of his own legacy, one that Jordan himself lamented. Despite being a highly well-rounded player, his Air Jordan image, that spectacular leaping ability, inadvertently led to a focus on just scoring and dunking in young players.
It's the curse of being too marketable. He noted that his defense and fundamental skills were never really publicized because the marketing machine emphasized the spectacular, the highlight reel. The myth overshadowed the disciplined fundamentals.
Which leads us to a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over. We've seen overwhelming data proving his competitive genius on the court. But his executive failures with the Wizards and the early, highly criticized struggles as a Hornets owner were public and messy.
So was Jordan's time spent failing as an executive and learning the complex financial and business landscape of the NBA a necessary, challenging period of growth that ultimately allowed him to achieve his immense off-court financial status, making him the world's richest celebrity athlete? Did those public failures in the front office provide the essential business education that fueled his greatest financial conquest?